I'm ready for my close-up, Mr. DeVille. I'm Raynel, and welcome to my channel, CasinoRaynel. This is a space where I'll intertwine my career in the casino industry along with my crazy interests of the histories, the mysteries, the murders, the crimes of the infamous Sin City, Las Vegas, Nevada. Not Nevada, Nevada. Before we start this segment, I want to shout out my favorite YouTubers. That's Bailey Syrian and Brittany Vaughn. They're like my good homegirls, like from afar. They don't know it yet, but I love me some them. And that is where I was inspired to hop on this thing. We're gonna start off by a segment that I call What Stays in Vegas. In this segment, I'll tell true crime stories basically and history stories that I did my own research on. Our first story is gonna start off with two basic guys who basically counterfeited the currency of Las Vegas, casino chips. Casino chips range from $1 chips to like $25,000 chips. The companies that make these chips are kept like top secret, like nobody really knows. I don't even think the casinos really know themselves. So in the early 2000s, in the 99 and the 2000s, two contractors decided that they were gonna make casino chips themselves. And the mastermind behind this all was a 40-year-old man by the name of Eric Morikawa. Contracting business was booming in Vegas. It was new casinos going up, older casinos upgrading, and like different structures basically that needed building. So 40-year-old Eric Morikawa moves from Southern California to Las Vegas to take on some of these contracts that are like booming in Vegas at the time. And almost immediately, he has like more work than he can handle. He decides to hire help. Well, not help, but hire employees for his company. While in the bar one night shooting pool, he meets 20-year-old Jeremy Lewis. At the time, Jeremy didn't have a job, so upon meeting one another, Eric gives Jeremy a job. And though Jeremy had a really spotty background, he was still like a really good worker. So for the next 4 years, the guys were really making money. Then in 2004, the economy takes a dive. And as time went on, the guys started to take jobs further and further away from the strip. On the ride home from one of these jobs, Eric and his team rides past a billboard. And on this billboard, it's a casino chip. And when he sees this, he gets an idea and he says to his team, how hard would it be for us to make casino chips? And they all agreed that it wouldn't be hard at all. He and his team decide that once they got home, they would create casino chips. So the guys purchase real casino chips and they take them back to Eric's garage. They cut them in half just to see what they're made of and see if they can like duplicate it. They begin to try to make their own chip out of different like clays and metals. They needed to get this formula right. The chips would have to basically like look the same, weigh the same, and sound the same. Testing out their fake chips with real chips started to become a challenge. They couldn't get it right. So when you drop real casino chips to the floor, it makes like a hollow sound. But when you would drop the fake chips that the guys made to the floor, it made more of like a thump sound. Eric knew right away that this wasn't gonna basically counterfeit a real chip if it didn't really replicate a real chip. After a few weeks of like trying to get the formula right, they are to no avail. They can't get it. So once the team gets frustrated with not producing anything, most of them quit, leaving only Eric and Jeremy. They still spent hours upon hours trying to get this Krabby Patty formula correct. And they didn't until Eric had another brilliant idea. He grabs a Sharpie and begins to like color in one of the chips. He realized that he could probably turn the $1 chips into $100 chips. Instead of making chips from scratch, they would just take real casino chips and change the denomination on the chips because it would be easier to modify the chip than to replicate it themselves. First, the guys had to remove the inlays on the chips. That's a little sticker that sits in the middle of a chip and tells you basically the value of the chip. So like the $1 would have $1, 5 would have 5, and etc. And to get the inlays off of the chips, the guys realized that it had to be heated up. But if they heated the chip, it would actually bend the chip some. So instead, they began to boil the chips at 212 degrees. This would lift the inlay, making it easier to pull up, and it wouldn't harm the chip at all. It would be perfectly intact. So after lifting the inlays, the guys now had to duplicate the signature colors of the chips. And the particular casino that they started this with was the Green Valley Ranch Casino. And I believe it was 10 minutes away from Vegas. They used the chips from that particular casino to run their experiment on and see if it would work. After the guys would remove the inlays from the chips, they had to turn the $1 chips into $100 chips. So the guys went to the art supply store and they got different paints. They started to mix the colors, but each casino has like their own like signature shade almost. And that's what like distinguishes them from other casino chips. The Green Valley Ranch $1 chips were gray with teal stripes, and the $100 chips were black with gray stripes. They would take the gray $1 chips and turn them into black $100 chips. So I can sort of I see the vision. The guys now had to create these signature colors, the gray and the black, from the Green Valley Ranch Casino. They got glitters, they got paints, and they start mixing. And they mix it. Once they test the mixtures that they've came up with in different lights, inside, outside, they finally feel as though they've came pretty close to, if not spot on, to the colors of these chips. And instead of just painting them on, they would airbrush them on because it was a lighter spray or like a lighter layer that was a lot better for the duplicating of the chip. First, the guys would airbrush the $1 gray chips completely gray. And after it dried, they would take tape and put them in the spaces where the black chip was gray. And then they would spray paint the chip black. Let it dry, take the tape off. After painting the chips, the guys now had to create inlays. Again, they're the stickers that go in the middle of the chip with the value of the chip on it. What they did was they scanned a real inlay onto a computer, and then they printed the inlays out onto plastic paper. After printing out the fake plastic inlays, they would put the inlays onto bumper sticker paper and then roll it onto the chip, and it would fit seamlessly. And after a month of working on these chips, the guys now had 3 $100 chips. Now that they've produced a few chips, Eric and Jeremy wants to see if they can cash out. So they head up to Green Valley Ranch, and Eric doesn't really want to go inside because he's not really good at lying. But Jeremy, on the other hand, if you don't give up, he doesn't give up. So Jeremy goes inside of the Green Valley Ranch with his 3 fake $100 chips, and Eric sits in the parking lot waiting for Jeremy to return. When Jeremy returns, he gets in the truck and he tells Eric to drive. Eric thinks someone's behind them, but then he looks over and Jeremy has now 3 $100 bills in his hand. And they got action. Say less. That's their thought. Say less. They got back to Eric's garage and they started to produce. The guys went from taking a month to make 3 $100 chips to now producing 20 chips per day. They could go into the garage and within 5 minutes have a new chip. Isn't that crazy? Easy. So now the guys plan to work their magic all around the strip. They counterfeited chips from 8 casinos on the strip, that including Caesar's Palace and Mandalay Bay. Crazy, right? After a while of like just cashing out, the guys realized like they can't keep cashing out and not playing, because that's gonna raise a red flag. So the guys start to buy in with some of the money that they've already made from cashing out. They would buy casino chips at the tables, play a little bit, and then afterwards they would switch their fake chips out for real casino chips. Like in the bathroom or in the parking lot, they would like go make the swap. So when the guys went to cash out at the cash cage, the guys would cash in fake chips, keeping the real chips, and feeling as though if they were to get caught, they could always reference the table that they had just brought chips off of. So this goes on for a while, and these guys are living life and telling no one. Eric didn't even tell his wife, who started to feel suspicious of him, but she didn't really ask too many questions because like she was reaping the benefits too. She had new bags, new clothes, shoes, the cars, all that. So instead of asking questions, she just mind her wifely business. As you should, ma'am. I would have probably been quiet too. The guys were living their lives, okay? And Jeremy was really living. He had big lavish suites. He was just like blowing bread, having like, you know, the ladies of the night and everything else that he could indulge in this high roller life he was now living. So one day while Jeremy was on the phone with one of his lady friends, Eric asked, could he talk to her? And as soon as he gets on the phone, she tells him that she knows everything and they now needed to pay her. And what did they do? They paid her. Because, I mean, why wouldn't they? They couldn't not pay her. After this, Eric is livid because he hadn't even told his wife, and Jeremy is telling perfect strangers at this point. For a few days, they pay her. One day, she basically wants more money or she's gonna snitch. And again, they pay her, hoping that they got this monkey off of their back or the situation some type of contained. The guys decide to start planning for a trip to Atlantic City to take their casinos. See, Eric's wife would be out of the country at this time, visiting family. And this was just the perfect opportunity to take advantage of, you know, his lady being gone. But before the guys could even make it out of town, Eric gets a knock on his front door by a man that claims his son had kicked a ball into Eric's yard and he wanted to retrieve it. Without any suspicions, Eric turns around to go retrieve the ball, and this is when the guy at the door takes him down and 2 other people jump from the bushes to help. These 3 people were enforcement agents from the Nevada Gaming Control Board. Eric and Jeremy's blackmailer had indeed turned them in. She snitched. Gaming Control Board had gathered enough information basically to like take these guys down with a warrant. And upon searching Eric's garage, they found everything. The paint, the printers, the computers, the glitter, everything. I forgot to tell you guys that on the chips, they also had to draw on a little hat and cane that was the security measures at the time. You could only see it with a black light. And they found the pins for that too in this whole like ordeal. The gaming agency was in disbelief that 2 construction workers had basically compromised the security of Las Vegas casino chips. And the quality of the chips was just out of this world. So Eric and Jeremy gets locked up, and 3 days later, they're able to see a judge. And during their first bail hearing, their bail is set at $5 million. $5 million. And unable to make bail, both guys basically are shipped back off to a max security jail. And this is where, for some reason, Eric becomes like a celebrity amongst the inmates. So other inmates basically like introduced Eric to another inmate with a really high bail. And these guys get to like chatting it up. They begin to like tell each other their story. Eric finds out that he's talking to a Russian gang member. And this Russian wants some action, okay? The Russian basically says, hey, once we both get out, we should do business. And Eric hesitantly agrees, but he agrees. And a few days later, Eric gets a new bail hearing. Eric's bail is dropped down to $12,000 and he's able to make bail. Unfortunately for Jeremy, he had outstanding warrants in California, I believe. So it was a no for him. He had to take a sit. And after serving a total of 10 days in jail, Eric is a free man, but he still has bills. Being the breadwinner in his family, he still had the bills of home and the bills of his attorney, and this put him in a bunch of debt. Now, desperate for money, he decides to contact the Russian who had also recently got out of jail. And when he meets with the Russian lets him know that he wants to learn how to make chips. And he wants Eric to teach him and his team to make them. At first, Eric was like, But with his own debts, Counterfeit was the answer. So Eric reverts back to forgery, basically. But this time, he didn't really want to like get his feet wet. He would teach the Russians for 25% profit. And in doing so, he would try to be as low-key as possible. To avoid getting caught, he would take like alternative routes to go meet up with these guys. He would constantly check his mirrors to see if anyone was following him. And he's able to teach the guys how to make counterfeit chips. And once they learn, the Russians hit to the strip. The thing is, I don't think the Russians made chips as good as Eric and Jeremy though, because almost immediately after exchanging some of these chips, an alert table dealer notices a few in the rack. And if you don't know what the rack is, it's basically the money the chips that sits in front of the dealers at the casino tables. He could tell like the colors were like a bit off. This raised red flags for the casino and of course the gaming board. And it had only been 2 individuals that were successful in counterfeiting casino chips at this point. And that was Eric and Jeremy. And with Jeremy still taking his sit, who was suspect number 1? Eric. So the gaming board begins to close in on Eric and closes in on a session of him teaching the Russians how to counterfeit the chips. And with nowhere to go, all of the guys are basically forced to surrender and they are hauled off to jail, of course. And once back in jail, one of the best things that Eric could do was hire a really shrewd defense attorney. This defense attorney had to be like top tier, to be honest, because in 2006, Eric makes a deal by pleading guilty to 6 felony counts. And he basically walks with 5 years probation in community service. And for this crazy ordeal, Eric only spent about a week and a half the first time he was locked up in jail. And then the second time, a few days. Yet he still had to make restitution for all of the counterfeit chips he passed. And this equaled up to about $36,000 of what they could find. Because let Eric tell it, they made tens of thousands of dollars. He thinks they did over $1 million. To be honest, some of the chips are probably still in circulation to this day. What I can say is Eric and Jeremy's counterfeit casino chip scam was definitely a wake-up call for the casino. And now they use a electronic device called RFID. It's basically like a small chip that's inside of each of the casino chips now that tells not only the value of the chip, but could also tell how many chips are on a table. And now it will be no discrepancy in how much a chip valued, no matter what the face looked like. All in all, Eric does not promote or recommend making counterfeit chips because, yeah, you're gonna go to jail. You're gonna go to jail. But I mean, he didn't go that long. I don't want to go to jail at all. But anyway, that was my first story. Did you guys enjoy this story? Comment down below. Let me know. And don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Until next time, I'm Raynel. And this is CasinoRaynel. Bye.